Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our panel discussion titled A Wake Up Call on Climate Change Before It's Too Late. I am Alyssa Jade, and I will be your moderator for today. Today's discussion focuses on SDG 13, climate action, which highlights the urgent need for stronger efforts to combat climate change and address its growing impacts on our planet. So, according to the United Nations Environment Programme UNEP Emissions Gap Report 2024, the world is facing a critical gap between current climate commitments and the level of action needed to limit global warming. The report emphasizes that existing efforts are not sufficient to achieve the goals of the Paris Agreement, and significant reductions in greenhouse gas emissions are required within this decade to keep the 1.5 degrees Celsius target possible. As the moderator for today's session, I will provide an overview of current climate change challenges and facilitate a structured discussion among our panelists, focusing on the causes, impacts, solutions, and Malaysia's role in addressing climate change. To discuss this important topic, we are honored to have four distinguished panelists representing different perspectives. Firstly, we have Humaira Akila, who will share insights on the main causes of climate change. Next, we have Nurin Sofia, who will discuss the effects of climate change on the environment and human well-being. We are also joined by Nurain Shafika, who will share ways to handle issues regarding climate action. And lastly, we have Aina Akila, who will highlight Malaysia's role in addressing climate change. Throughout this discussion, we hope to raise awareness, exchange ideas, and explore practical solutions towards building a more sustainable and climate-resilient future. Without further delay, let us begin our discussion. With that, I now invite our first panelist, Humaira, to share her thoughts. Please welcome.
Thank you. My name is Humaira, and as a first panelist here, I'm going to talk about the main causes of climate change. We often hear debates about whether climate change is natural or caused by humans. It is true that Earth's climate changed in the past due to things like volcanoes or the sun. However, the evidence is still clear. The rapid warming we see today is not part of those natural cycles. My position is that we must accept human activity as the main causes of this crisis so we can actually fix it. According to the Natural Resources Defense Council (NRDC) 2026, the main cause of today's warming is the greenhouse effect, a process where gases trap heat in our atmosphere. While natural causes exist, they are too slow and even too small to explain the sharp rise in the temperature we have seen since the Industrial Revolution. The NRDC 2026 identifies human activity as the real driver. Over the last 150 years, our heavy use of fossil fuels for transport, electricity, and factories has pushed greenhouse gases like carbon dioxide and methane to their highest level in 800,000 years. On top of that, our destruction of forests and wetlands has removed the natural systems that are supposed to absorb these emissions. In the United States, transportation is responsible for a huge part of this emission, with cars and trucks being the largest contributors. This is not about blaming anyone, it is about understanding how the problem works. By accepting that our current ways of generating power and managing land are the main causes, we can focus on the right solution like renewable energy, even cleaner infrastructure to protect our planet's future. That's all from me.
Thank you very much for your valuable insights, Humaira. So, just now you mentioned that human activities, especially the use of fossil fuels and deforestation, are the main drivers of climate change. Could you explain how these activities create such a significant impact on our climate system?
Sure, human activities, especially burning fossil fuels and deforestation, have a significant impact on the climate because they increase the amount of greenhouse gases in the atmosphere. When we burn coal, oil, and natural gas for electricity, transportation, and industries, large amounts of carbon dioxide are released, trapping more heat in the Earth's atmosphere. At the same time, deforestation reduces the number of trees that absorb carbon dioxide, while cutting or burning forests releases even more carbon into the air. As a result, the enhanced greenhouse effect causes global warming, leading to rising temperature, more frequent extreme weather events, melting ice cap, and rising sea levels. This is why human activities are considered the main driver of climate change today.
Thank you very much for your answer, Humaira. Now, I would like to invite Noreen Sophia as our second panelist to share her thoughts about the impacts of climate change. Please welcome.
Okay, thank you very much to our moderator. Without further ado, I would like to discuss the impacts of climate change on the environment and human well-being. When people hear the term climate change, they often think only about rising temperatures, when the reality is much broader than that. Because we can see how much climate change is already affecting the way we live, the environment around us, and even our health. According to Frank Odimegu 2025, climate change is causing major disruptions to our natural environment because we are seeing more frequent and intense heat waves, floods, droughts, and storms than ever before. These extreme weather events damage forests, rivers, and ecosystem, making it harder for many plant and animal species to survive. And the effects do not stop there. Climate change also has a direct impact on human well-being. For example, when the temperatures continue to rise, heat-related illnesses such as heat stroke or heat rash become more common, especially among children, older adults, and those with existing health conditions. Another impact that is often overlooked is mental health. When people experience repeated floods, storms, or other disasters, they may suffer from stress, anxiety, and emotional trauma. And this shows that climate change affects not only our physical environment, but also our quality of life. So what I'm trying to point out is climate change is both an environmental and a human issue. The impacts are already being felt around the world, and understanding these consequences is the first step toward taking meaningful action. Thank you.
So, the mental health impacts on climate change are often overlooked. So, how can societies better support people who experience stress or trauma caused by climate related disasters?
Okay, thank you for your question. The mental health impacts of climate change deserve much more attention because many people are experiencing anxiety, stress, sadness, or a sense of helplessness when they see rising temperatures, extreme weather events, and environmental destruction. Some people even worry about losing their homes, their livelihoods, or their environment they grew up with, and that can take a real emotional toll. So, in order to support our people better, giving people opportunities to take action can make a difference, whether it's joining local environmental projects or supporting sustainability efforts. Being part of a solution can help people feel more hopeful and less powerless. With that, I will pass the forum to our moderator and continue the next session.
Thank you very much for your answer, Noreen Sophia. So, next we will move on to Nur Ain Shafika, who will share ways to handle issues regarding climate action. Please welcome.
So, I would like to talk about how can we reduce climate actions. So first, when discussing about climate change, many people think only governments and large corporations can make a difference. While they carry most of the responsibility, individuals also play an important role. According to Hong Peng Lee from UNEP, governments and businesses must bear most of the burden for reducing greenhouse gas emissions. But you and I will also have an important role to play. This reminds us that our daily choices also matter. One simple way to reduce our carbon footprint is by changing how we travel. UNEP recommends walking, cycling, and also using public transportation whenever possible. Going car-free can save up 2 tons of carbon dioxide emissions per year. Other than that, we also can reduce energy at home by switching to LED lights, using energy efficient appliances, and also turning off devices when not in use. Our food choices matter too. Eating more plant-based foods and less red meat can lower emissions. We should also avoid food waste because we should also avoid food waste. UNEP says that households around the world waste more than 1 billion meals every day. So protecting forests is another important step also because forests absorb carbon dioxide and help slow global warming. Supporting reforestation and also using sustainable woods and paper products can make a difference. So, in conclusions, climate actions needs both government leadership and individual responsibility. By making smarter choices in transport, energy use, food, and consumption, we can all help build a healthier planet. That's all.
Thank you for sharing those points. You mentioned that individual actions such as changing our transport habits, reducing energy use, and making better food choices can contribute to climate action. However, some people argue that individual efforts are too small compared to the impact of large industries and corporations. How can we encourage individuals to take action while also ensuring that governments and businesses remain accountable for their larger responsibilities?
Okay. Thank you, Jit, for the question. So I agree that governments and businesses should bear the greatest responsibility because they have the power to create large-scale change. However, individual actions are still important because when millions of people make small changes, such as using public transport, saving energy, or even reducing food waste, the combined impact can be significant. Our choices also encourage businesses to offer more sustainable products and services. At the same time, individuals can hold governments and businesses accountable by supporting climate-friendly policies and choosing companies that care about the environment. Because every little bit counts. So, one person's actions may seem small, but when millions of people make sustainable choice, the collective impact can be significant. That's why eliminate. That's why eliminate action. That's why climate actions is everyone's responsibility.
Thank you for a very wonderful insight, Norain. Now I would like to invite our last panelist for today, Aina. So, what do you think about climate action in the Malaysian context?
Thank you, moderator. I want to focus on my ascent aspect, which is climate change in Malaysia, content, impacts, and responses. First, according to Eric Kunz 2024, Malaysia faced very high climate risk in the Global Climate Risk Index. Our country is highly exposed to extreme weather, rising sea levels, and hotter temperatures due to our location and economic activities. Second, on the impact, the article highlight three major crises. We are facing fast forest loss from oil palm plantation, severe air pollution and haze, and warmer ocean that directly cause the dying of our coral reef. Third, for the responses, Eric Kun 2024 points out that Malaysia is using the Malaysia Renewable Energy Roadmap or MyRER to increase renewable energy capacity and cut carbon emission. However, looking at looking at this deeply, I found a weakness in the article. While it is a good explaining this big industrial and environment problem, it completely leave out how local everyday people can actually adapt to this change on the ground. Having plan like my RER is a good start, but the impact of our forest and ocean are happening too fast. And we need to make sure the local communities are protected too. Thank you. Back to you, moderator.
All right. Thank you also to our fourth panelist, Aina. So you mentioned that while initiatives like MyRER are important, there is still a gap in addressing how local communities adapt to climate change. So, in your opinion, what kind of support or actions are needed to help communities become more climate resilient?
Um, that is a very important question. In my opinion, we need two simple action to help our local communities. First, the government must provide better education and early warning system. During big flood like severe haze, During big flood or severe haze, everyday people must know exactly what to do to protect their health. Second, we need financial support and training for our farmers and fishermen. Climate change destroyed coral reef and weather pattern, which directly hurt their income. We must give them the right tools and skills to survive and earn a living. At the end of the day, big plans like my RER are good for the future, but we must take care of our local communities and protect their life today. That's all from me. Thank you.
All right, thank you. So now that we've heard from all four panelists, I have one question that I would like to ask. So, who do you think should take the greatest responsibility for climate action? Governments, businesses, or maybe individuals?
In my opinion, climate action is a shared responsibility, but I think governments should take greatest responsibility. Since climate change is a global issue, coordinated action led by the governments is essential to achieve large-scale and long-term results. What do you guys think?
I agree with you, panelist one, Myra, that government must lead. But in my opinion, business also play a huge role. Big company need to stop destroying our environment, like cutting down forests for profit. Instead of just thinking about money, they should invest in green solution and help support the local communities affected by climate change. That's how I see it. I'm open to what everyone else think about this.
Okay, so I completely agree with Aina's points. Businesses have a huge responsibility because many of them contribute significantly to pollution and carbon emissions. Since they have the money, technology, and resources, they should invest in cleaner energy, reduce waste, and use more sustainable materials. And at the same time, businesses can influence consumers by offering more environmentally friendly products and packaging. And if companies take the lead, they can make it easier for people to make greener choices. And that is why I believe businesses should take greater responsibility for climate action.
Okay, thank you. I totally agree with all the views shared by the other panelists. But from my perspective, I think it is less about choosing who is more important and more about how responsibility is shared. Governments can set the direction through policies, while businesses can drive innovation and large scale solutions. At the same time, individuals play an important role in turning these efforts into daily actions. Even simple habits like how we travel, use energy, or make purchases may seem small, but when done collectively, they can influence bigger systems. So instead of ranking responsibility, I believe climate action is most effective when governments, businesses, and also individuals work together and support each other. I will pass it back to the moderator.
All right, thank you to all four panelists for your wonderful insights. So, to conclude the discussion just now, it is clear that everyone plays an important role in making sure our climate change can be reduced. So, maybe one last question to all panelists. Maybe all of you can share what is one major change you hope to see in the next 10 years regarding climate action. Maybe Umaira can answer first.
For me, I would like to see climate education become a bigger part of school curricula and public awareness campaigns. Educating people about climate change and sustainable practices can empower individuals to make informed decisions and encourage collective action toward protecting the planet. That's my opinion.
Sorry, as for me, I hope we see greater investment in resilient infrastructure, better early warning system, and community-led solutions that help people adapt to these changing conditions. And it is very important that vulnerable communities receive the support they need, as they are often the most affected by climate impacts. Because at the end of the day, climate action is not just about preventing future risks. It is also about helping people build safer, stronger, and more resilient communities today. And that is the change I hope we will achieve over the next decade.
So, but as for me, In the next 10 years, I hope to see stronger shift from talking about climate action to actually seeing consistent implementation at every level. This means policies that are not only well designed but also properly enforced and real accountability for industry that contribute heavily to emissions. At the same time, I hope sustainable living becomes the easier and more common choice for everyone, not something people have to struggle to practice. If climate friendly options become part of daily systems, transport, energy, and consumption, it will naturally lead to long term behavioral change.
In the next 10 years, I hope to see a better climate education and awareness for the young. We need the younger generation to practice green habit daily. If they start making a small change now, it will create a huge impact to our future. Real change start with a mindset. Thank you.
So, thank you everyone for your wonderful insight. I hope to see the major change in the next 10 years also, just like all of you. So, today we have explored climate change from different angles, from understanding its main causes to examining its impacts on our environment and human well being, as well as discussing the responses and solutions needed to address this global change. And one key takeaway from today's discussion is that climate change is not only an environmental issue, but also a social and economic issue that affects every part of our lives. The challenges we face, such as rising temperatures, extreme weather events, biodiversity loss, and threats to human health, remind us that climate action cannot be delayed. As highlighted throughout this discussion, achieving SDG 13 climate action requires cooperation from all stakeholders, governments through effective policies, businesses through sustainable practices, and individuals through responsible choices and greater awareness. Climate change may be a global challenge, but the actions we take today can shape the future of our planet. Every effort, whether big or small, contributes to its building a more sustainable and resilient future. So, with that, I would like to thank our panelists for their contributions and thank you everyone for being part of this meaningful discussion. Let us continue to take action because protecting our climate means protecting our future. Thank you. That's the end of our panel discussion for today.